Welcome to the Filthy Casual Neon Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Bostian, and with me today is...
Nuno Martins.
Hey, Nuno, how you doing today?
I'm good.
All right, let's cut through the chitter-chatter and jump straight into the content. This is our first episode,
Let's do it.
and we'd like to introduce a little bit about our format. We're aiming to be a short-form show focused entirely on narrative play in Age of Sigmar. And we're going to have 3 sections in each show. Our main focus is going to be on upcoming and recent narrative events. There's a wide variety, as Nuno and I have talked about. There are a lot of different events going on in the world. For several years now, we've seen coalescence global events. We've seen more recently animosity. We've seen big events like at Nova Open and at Adepticon, and of course, coming up soon, Realms at War, not to mention Holy Havoc. The list can go on and on.
Our goal is to ensure that people know that folks are playing narrative gaming. It's not this thing that nobody ever plays yet somehow is in the General's Handbook and nobody does anything with those rules. That's not true. There are organized events using narrative rules, doing narrative gaming with many, many attendees, and you can join them too. So we want to publicize them here so that you are aware that they are out there, maybe where you can find them, or maybe get inspiration to be the first person in your local group to be the narrative event organizer.
And our third segment is the Neo's Corner. Here there will be a space to focus on a specific topic on how to introduce this innovation in your narrative games, or focus on interviewing a particular organizer, and what do they do in their events, and what advice do they have to give, or to focus on specific applications of rules in events. So this will be a more flexible category. And there's also a lot of content creators, a lot of podcasters focusing on narrative. So we want to ensure that these things are publicized. What will be the most direct route for people that want to find out more about the resources that our community has to offer? Aaron.
We have a website with a blog and some resources under the menu button in the upper right-hand corner. All you have to do is search for wearetheneon.com, and we've got a variety of blog posts there about recent events. There's also a series of articles if you're interested in trying to start your own narrative event, starting with everything from how to pick a date, how to find a venue, how to charge for tickets, how to win, or not win, but how to designate awards and prizes. It was a really handy article that was written by a group effort, but that's actually a really good resource for you if you're hearing this and you haven't tried running your own event. Maybe you actually were involved with a coalescence game or something else, and you'd like to pull your local group together and run something a little bit different from a store tournament, then wearetheneon.com is your place to go.
I think the specific set of tips and tricks for running an event is exactly what's missing for someone who's coming at this from the point of view of a roleplay game. If you've played D&D or other roleplay games and you're trying to get into this to run narrative, you probably will know how to set up a story and a table, but running a bigger event with multiple players is the bit that you need, and these are really helpful to make that transition.
Yep, agreed. I think anytime you have more than about 6 players at a narrative event, I really like Triumph and Treachery. When I have 3 or 4 friends playing, I can play too. But when you get into 6 to 8 players and more, you're having to break players up. And unlike a tournament where the TO, the TO stays busy and there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes and leading up to the event, but there are periods of hectic busyness for a TO, and then there's periods of kind of quietness. And usually most of your players know what they're doing and they don't have a lot of questions, especially if you're running an event with 16 to 20 players. And it can be a little boring at times, to be honest. But with an era event, I mean, it's all about engagement and getting your players talking about their armies and talking about what's happening on the table and interpreting what those dice rolls mean to their narrative. And by all means, you can put on your game master hat and walk around and just asking questions and just saying, hey, this hero that you've got here on the table, I like how he's painted. What's his name? What's his story? And that can really make the games go longer, for one, but it can be a lot of fun. Because suddenly it's not just, especially for losing, and as a player that loses a lot myself, having a little narrative at the tabletop makes losing more fun, because suddenly it's not like, oh, I failed another save roll and I'm going to remove more models. Then it's like, once again, my Skaven warlord slipped on his bad footwear and, stabbed himself in the face. So it goes.
No, and definitely try not to play in your event. And be free to essentially be running the whole thing and helping everyone as much as I can, unless you have some sort of special trick that you can manage to do all these things. But it's generally recommended that you are free to essentially wander around.
Yeah, so check out the wearetheneon.com website. Also, if you're on Facebook, we have an AOS Neon Facebook group.
That's where all the hot stuff is happening. Like, being there gives you access to everything that's happening, and people post their, oh, I've just done this that I'm planning on running. What do you guys think? So people cross-check their event packs with each other. That's that's where I learned a lot of things, how to kind of incorporate in events that I run. It's always busy.
It's important to, even if you're the only person running an event, especially if you're the only person, it's always a good idea to have someone else read over your event pack before you post it publicly, just to catch those little typos that can happen even to the best of us. So my big suggestion too is find somebody else that can at least do some proofreading for you. But yeah, we have a lot of that information on the website, and we welcome any kind of contributions. If you want to submit an article with some tips and suggestions, or even just experiences that you've had, either as a player or a Neo, check out wearetheneon.com.
And the Facebook group, if you want to search, is AOS Neon. You should be able to find it. You just click to join, and then we'll wait a bit for folks to approve you, and then you'll be able to get in. So maybe just for people to kind of situate themselves a little bit, to see where does the Neon group, the Narrative Event Organizer Network, come from, and what it consists of, and how this all started. So how about you give us an overview of how this bubbled up out of the primal muck, Aaron?
So narrative events in Warhammer Age of Sigmar kind of goes all the way back to the beginning of Age of Sigmar. When it first came out, July 4th weekend, 2015, Stephen Herner and his group had already started a narrative Warhammer Fantasy Battles event before Age of Sigmar. And their focus was on a more casual tone of play. And when Age of Sigmar came out, a lot of people didn't like the fact that there were no points, but it definitely created a gaming environment where you didn't really play to win, because there wasn't a good measure of victory, and especially in a tournament setting. So it was very much a narrative kind of system straight out of the gate. And our first Nova in 2015, we had 6 players. One was my wife, and we just played some games and had fun. And then we had, I know, Gary in Du Bois in November of that year ran an Age of Sigmar event, was also pretty small. I think he had maybe 16 players. But then things got more traction, of course, in 2016 with the first General's Handbook. A lot of players came back. A lot of new players started playing. We saw some more structured tournaments, but the narrative thing has never gone away. And again, we've seen Holy Havoc and Holy Wars as an annual set of events that happen every year that are going on strong. Realms at War is having their fourth annual event this coming weekend, and it seems to show no sign of letting up. We've seen global events like Coalescence and Animosity.
And who were exactly the mastermind, like the grandfathers of Neon that got together at the time for the first Coalescence?
I think we got to pin that blame on Eric Stonemonk. He was the guy that kind of pulled that original team together of myself and Tyler Mengel, and who had written some awesome narrative battle plans. One of my first attempts at a narrative battle plan myself was inspired by his Kill the Messenger battle plan that was set in his Endless Deserts. And I really loved that battle plan because it was so asymmetrical, and the goal for one player was to actually run up with his leader and touch the opponent's leader and not attack it and not get killed, and try to talk some sense into the opponent's leader. And then, of course, the pantheon of Realms at War, which is Steve and Ming and Mitzi and Jimbo. And then, as the event got some traction, more people got involved. But yeah, I think it all started with Eric Stonemonk. He really was kind of the catalyst that brought everybody together, wrote a mission statement, and got us off the ground, and was behind getting the website set up and talking about the Coalescence event on his Mortal Realms podcast that he still runs with some others in his local group, and mostly focused on narrative gaming. We should probably also, we've already used some jargon. We should probably explain a little bit about narrative play in Age of Sigmar and some of the acronyms that we've already started using, like NEO, which actually stands for Narrative Event Organizer. It's kind of a takeoff on the TO, Tournament Organizer. But the idea is that most narrative events aren't really a tournament. Players play games a lot like a tournament over the course of several rounds, but the emphasis for awards and achievements is focused on hobby and storytelling and sportsmanship rather than victory and winning games.
That's even if you have a scoring at all.
Indeed. Some many narrative events are just a matter of getting together like-minded players in the same space and having a lot of fun and playing a lot of games and being filthy casual players.
Yes. The type of play that we want to promote is to be aggressively chill and balls to the wall casual gaming. That's what we want, and we're very serious about it.
Yes, well, so serious. I really enjoyed our Saturday night at Nova chill event where it wasn't even on the schedule. We had some vacant tables in the AOS hall, and somebody brought a coffee maker, and somebody brought some chilled beer, and we played some Warcry games there because Warcry was the new hotness. It had only been out for a couple weeks, and set up some terrain, and we had a good dozen players back there till close to midnight, drinking coffee, drinking beer. I know I was so chilled out that at some point I realized when I wanted to give somebody or I wanted to get someone's email written down and put in my wallet that I didn't have my wallet with me. So I realized I had left after backtracking a bit, I had left my wallet on a table on the other part of the room that had been there at least an hour and a half. So
And you were so chill that the level of worry in your face was so subdued that I was surprised.
Yeah, that was after the big event ended, and that was a really nice day. That was a bit of a contrast with the GT. That was the first day of the AOS GT, and everybody had fun with that. But as it goes with the GT, um, you know, the thing that like to say about narrative events is that the last game is just as important as the first game, if not more so. It's usually some kind of epic conclusion. I like seeing a lot of Triumph and Treachery games at the end of my narrative events. And it can be kind of different from a GT because there are some players, not all, and not many, but there are some that will, once they lose that first game, they kind of just give up, and a lot of them don't show up for that second day of games because they don't feel like they can contend for one of the top spots, and they have no reason to play any more games.
Well, that's but
So
that's the thing is the reason why you show up there, because in a narrative none of that matters. You stay until the end. It's
yes,
the
indeed.
incentive is built in.
So we'd like to start with our first segment, which is recent events.
All right. So for recent events, Animosity 1 finished a couple while ago. And so Animosity has been run by Alex Polimeni and his team, together with several other Neos around the world. So it's a worldwide event that is run concurrently everywhere over the course of 3 days, over a weekend. And what they've done is they've done a story localized on a specific region, and everyone around the world that was connected to the event was essentially competing for domain of this region. And you could play at your store with your group and submit the results, which are all being controlled in the backstage by Alex and his team. And you could also contribute with a hobby project or also with a written narrative. So the event was very strong on written narrative, which I think is something that you don't see as often, which I think is pretty cool. This kind of event is actually really good for new groups and new players that want to join in, that haven't organized anything before, because you just join a bigger group of people, you submit your results, and you're part of a bigger narrative. So the Animosity group is going to run Animosity 2 very, very soon, so keep tuned. So if you want to start up this in your local group, this might be your chance.
We also recently had the Nova Open Grand Narrative. This is the fourth year of the Grand Narrative event at Nova Open. It lasts for several days with about 20 or so players. This year we had 27 players across 3 days of gaming, including narrative briefings and a lot of narrative shenanigans, both on the table and in between games, in our specially designed narrative conference room.
This year, players had to be part of one of two major coalitions, either the Magocracy of Umberspire, which was a mage city, or the Confederation of the Nine, a series of war clans. So on the one side, you had dealings with the mage lords trying to make coups to attain power, and on the other side, on the Confederacy of Nine, you had warlords trying to vie for the position, because there can only be 9 warlords in the Confederacy of Nine. And this all came to a head in the big siege battle.
Matt Tucker was the lead Neo for that event, and everyone had a great time. If you haven't seen the video of the giant wall for the Friday Night Siege event, I recommend checking out Bill Costello's Twitter feed. We'll also put links to these events in our show notes.
I'm especially proud of that siege battle. We did pretty well this year, I have to say. Matt's guidance was on point.
It was. I took some videos too that we really should put up somewhere of Matt talking. to that whole group of 20, 25 players in that back room.
Mm-hmm. All right. So covering some of the events that are coming up, which you might be interested in if they're in your vicinity, or you may want to travel a bit further to find them. Narrative events are a rare occasion that you need to go and find. So we have in Cambridge, UK, from 4 to 6 of October, we have Realms at War 2019, Realms at War Uprising.
Yeah, this is going to be an awesome event. I mean, the guys have been posting on Twitter, and it's kind of a this kind of epic civil war that's bubbling up over the surface, and they're going to have at least 30 players. I think I can't remember how many they had last year, but this has been kind of like an annual event for those guys this time of year, and Cambridge, and it's going to be awesome. I don't know if they're going to have a live stream, but there will be live updates throughout the weekend. The place to go is Twitter, and specifically at realms_at_raw. No,
War.
I screwed that up.
Realms_at_war. We'll have the link. We'll have the link for you guys to see.
Yes, exactly.
So from what I can see, what they're innovating in is they are including each player can bring a regiment of renown unit, which is essentially a unit which is kind of a bit of a rabble. It's made of any models from the same Grand Alliance, different war scrolls, up to 100 points. It's from 3 to 10 models, and this is a unit that essentially gets bonuses and penalties depending on whether they are sort of the revolutionaries or they're sort of like the established power in control that they're fighting against each other. And I think this could be something very weird and strange and crazy, but it could open a lot of possibilities for how to run a game.
Indeed. Well, every Realms at War is different and unique and strange. Like last year, they had the alchemy and the alchemists going on in the labs, the ether labs, and then before that, they had the giant monsters that were almost god beast size, that were so large they became terrain themselves.
Oh, I remember those tables. That
Yep.
was that gave a lot of publicity for Neon, at least from my eyes, from that perspective where I was at the time. Those tables really kind of brought in like the narrative and the sort of visual of running a narrative event by taking the lore bits that were already popping out in Age of Sigmar.
Indeed. That was 2017. That was an awesome year for narrative events. That was really when it kind of blossomed.
Okay, so what else? Something that is starting very, very soon as well is Fox Hunt in Arlington, Virginia, from October 5 to November 5. So this is a whole month. So you're running this, Aaron.
Yeah, so this is this year it's going to be a Warcry event. This started after my first experience running the narrative at Nova Open, and the skirmish rule set for AOS had just come out. And I wanted to just throw together a quick event because I was so excited because Nova was so much fun back in 2016 that I wanted to immediately organize and run something else. So I just got about a dozen guys together for a day event, and we played a bunch of skirmish games. And kind of the narrative concept was that there's this wizard named Fox, and he's on the run. He stole a king's special artifact, and each player had a little band of skirmishers that were basically bounty hunters, and the king said, this big gold coin to the bounty hunters that can bring the wizard back and retrieve my artifact. And then did the same thing again the next year, kind of the same concept. And this is our 4th year, and because I love Warcry so much as a skirmish type of game, this year is going to be exclusively a Warcry event, and we've expanded it a little bit to be a kind of a campaign. So it's a narrative campaign. I've smushed in the Monsters and Mercenaries book. So the unique quest for this is going to be each warband Again, on the hunt for the Wizard Fox. Of course, he's an undead wizard now because he was killed last year, but he's still up to his old shenanigans. He's got a talking spell tome that kind of accompanies him wherever he goes. And we've got a little short story that introduces that. And each player is going to track down a monster and capture it and use it in the final epic event, which is going to be on the 5th of November in Falls Church, Virginia.
All right, and there's also something extra on this event. Literally, some extra life, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. We're tied into Extra Life, which is a fundraising charity that gets gamers. It seems primarily video gamers, but it's definitely open to tabletop as well. It probably doesn't get as much focus, but we are basically doing a tabletop event that is going to be tied into raising money for our local children's hospital in Washington, D.C.
I think that's something that I think more events could also get into, because I think it's a really cool thing to do. Just like support your local charity. That's essentially. What was your suggestion? Put the price of admission as the charity.
Yeah, so I ran an event a while back where, and I've done this a couple times, where basically you bring a receipt for a donation. We had a ASPCA thrift store that was right around the corner from the game store. So I said, I recommended the ASPCA thrift store. Go in there, either give them a donation or buy something that was at least $15 and show me the receipt, and it's a free admission to the event. Of course, I had somebody who, wanted to had donated to another charity, and I honored their donation as their ticket for admission as well. But that was a really easy way to get people to think about charitable donations, and I didn't have to collect any money myself. And I didn't, it's certainly easier than food drive event, because I've done that too, and that can be a lot of fun. But then at the end of the day, not only do I have to clean up all the tables and terrain from the event, but then I've got a truckload of food that I've got to deliver to my local food pantry.
So I suppose the plug for a future Food Cry event will be in a further episode, but it will be.
Yes, it will be, but we can save that for later. We'll have to have a charitable event every episode. How about that?
That someone is running some charitable event, you mean?
Yeah. Well, or we'll talk about it. Yeah, I told you ClawCon didn't happen this year. That's I believe it's St. Louis, and all of their money goes to their local animal shelter in the city.
No, it's an extremely copyable idea. I think.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Let's publicize it. And also upcoming more further in November, we have Holy Havoc in Yorkville, Illinois, from 1 to 3 of November. It's a doubles narrative event, and it will feature some of the nicest complex scenery tables that I think are out there. They're like multi-level scenery with specific battle plans to achieve something specific in each table. And similar to something that people have experienced at Nova, there's also have like a custom warlord model that has its own war scroll that get bonuses during the event, which seems to be something very popular that several people are running in events. And they are also doing a raffle for a Hitsed House charity. So once more, people are jumping into the charity train, which is good.
Yeah, this is a esteemed event, Nuno, that has gone on for a number of years now. And between this and Holy Wars, I've actually borrowed a few things myself that I've used at Nova Open Narrative.
So who started doing the custom warlord first, actually?
I believe that was Steven. Steven,
oh, there we go.
Steven started that and at Holy Wars, and that was not something I incorporated into into Nova until after the Raw guys did it. And now it just seems to be an integrated dynamic of narrative events is having a hero that you can effectively level up during the course of the event.
Do we have these rules? Excuse me. Do we have these rules actually posted up in the We Are the Neon?
Let me look.
Specifically for if we were to, here you can go to get your all the rules that are out there in different events for your custom warlords.
Yeah,
Because
so
they're
I
pretty
have
useful.
it. Yeah, I have them for. That's a good hand clap too. I have them for no. Actually, I don't have them even for Nova because
Oh, should put them up.
yeah, because because Brian Orpin has the files. Actually, that's not true. No, it's in the event pack. It's in
Oh,
the
there you
Nova
go.
Open event pack. Yeah.
I think
Nova.
it could be worth it to actually have like one with a lot of them because people then could choose, the version that has a different war scroll for each different
Well,
hero or the hero
yep,
that you build yourself.
yep. And I'll have to talk to Tucker about posting his build a hero
I
system
love
that he
both
used at
versions
Nova this year.
actually.
Yeah.
The both versions at Nova, I like them. Like I guess maybe for different reasons each. I think they're both really good.
Yeah. I kind of liked this year more because last year, well, the last 2 years at Nova, we had a lot of copies of different ones, and of course, some turned out to be more popular than others, and there was no real way of knowing that. So the problem I ran into in 2017 was running out of bards, which I was really surprised by. Bards and illusionists were more popular than the fighters. So
I think
when
they
I got
cracked
down
the
to my
code.
last, yeah. So when I got down to my last copy, I'm like, hold on, I need to run and make some more copies of this. And then the next year, we actually brought a printer. So to anticipate that dynamic, instead of bringing 50 copies of each one and having lots of extra copies left over, because that is one of the things about being a Neo is it's not always cheap setting up and running your own event, and so we just brought a printer and printed kind of on demand, and we had the little laptop and the printer set up at the desk, and when people would say, oh, I want a because we had 14 different types that year,
I remember.
so it was crazy. Yeah, so it was like you wanted the ranger guy on horseback, and then it was like, all right, they all had clever names. I don't remember what all of them were, but then we could print on demand.
No, I saw. I walked in there and I saw all of that in action. From the outside, it looked like a well-oiled machine. We have no idea what happened in the
Yeah.
background. All it seems is that you guys were on top of business and we were
Yep.
getting sheets churned out and given to us.
Yep. It actually went pretty well. I think this year went. I mean, every year seems to get easier to run. I mean, we always add new things. That's what keeps it interesting for the organizers. Um, but at the same point, too, the more often you do this, the better it gets. The things you can anticipate that might go wrong, or just experience is a big whatever level up, right?
Yep.
So I'm like at least a level 3 Neo now. I think. I don't know what the
No,
top level is.
but that's why this is so useful, especially the resources that are there and people sharing things in the Facebook group. That's what's
Oh
helpful.
yeah. Oh yeah, because there's no reason, sharing this kind of stuff just helps other people avoid making some of the same mistakes, and don't have to learn the hard way.
Oh yeah, yeah. You always learn some the hard way because you think, nah, that won't be a problem. It is a problem. It
Yep.
is always a problem.
As part of our segment about upcoming narrative Age of Sigmar events, we actually got a chance to talk with Bill Costello about his new event coming up at LVO 2020. I'd like to welcome our first guest of the show, Bill Costello. Bill is, as you all may know, the esteemed producer and host of Rolling Bad Podcast, has been involved with a variety of narrative Age of Sigmar events, including Coalescence and Nova Open, and now is planning a narrative event at the LVO 2020. Bill, why start a narrative event at LVO?
Well, first off, let me thank you for letting me be the first guest. And to answer your question, why start a narrative event at LVO? Because I'm a glutton for punishment, and just doing Nova and Coalescence doesn't give me enough yearly beatdowns. So that's one of the reasons. But actually, the major reason has to be because there's never been that option there at LVO. It's a super competitive environment. That is what the LVO is designed to be, is, a competitive show. And I thought there needed to be an option for players, for AOS players, to do something with a little less stress and, have a little, flex their narrative chops a bit.
So what should players expect to experience at the narrative event at LVO next year?
Well, there's a pack that is on the LVO website, but it's very, very bare bones. The actual true event pack is going to go up shortly, but for someone that's never been involved in a big narrative event before, I would say be ready to have your mind expanded a little bit, because it's going to start out with 1,000 point armies. And then as you succeed and as you gain objectives, which are going to be coins, in the different scenarios, you're going to be able to purchase upgrades to your army and hopefully bring it up to a 2,000 point army before the event is over. Now, also, there's this whole mechanic of we're not worried so much about wins and losses. It's a true narrative event. You're not going to be graded on going, you could go 5-0 and still come in toward the bottom if you haven't achieved making a lot of coin and upgrading your stuff and achieving the different narrative objectives that are out there. So it's one of those things where you have to kind of disconnect yourself from matched play and bring yourself into that narrative idea of anything goes, and the victory conditions aren't necessarily winning the scenarios. You know what I mean.
I think I know exactly what you mean, Bill. So this sounds awesome. This is going to be a separate time slot than the GT. Is that correct?
Yes, we're separate from the GT. We're running this on Friday and Saturday, and one of the goals there was I noticed the way that you did the Nova Open narrative stuff, where you did it on the days when the GT wasn't, so that not only would people have the ability to do both, but it gave people the ability to do other things during the convention. And that's one of the things I wanted to do here. Was the schedule is set up so that if you want to do seminars, if you want to do the hobby classes, if you just want to hang out with your friends, you're going to have that opportunity. You're not tied to this hellish schedule of 4 games a day for 4 days,
Sounds cool. So on a more personal note, what are your personal expectations going into this? Because I believe you're going to have some help with this, but you're kind of the lead person on this, the lead Neo, and I know you've helped organize a lot of narrative events. But how does it feel to be in the pilot seat, so to speak?
Well, first off, like I told you earlier today, I'm in this for the fat cash that comes with being, just that money that comes rolling in. Okay. So now that we got that out of the way, really my expectations is I really want to get this thing. This is the first year, and I really want players to have a great time and ask for it to come back, because that's the ultimate measure of success, is if when they do their questionnaires at the end, or they contact Reese and the frontline gaming guys and they say, hey, we really want this event to come back, that's when I'll know whether or not I've been successful or not. And my expectation, I just want to provide an alternative for players who don't want to be caught up in the competitive scene. There's a lot of people that go that just don't want to be in that breakneck pace of playing 3 and 4 games. And my hat's off to Scott Reed. He does an amazing job every year out there putting on the GT and the doubles. He's a phenomenal TO out there who doesn't get enough recognition, I think. But I wanted to have something that other people could jump into if they didn't want that thing. And that's really all I expect. The guys are going to help me. I mean, I've got some guys from the podcast. Elric's going to help. Midwest Chad's going to help me out. So I really want it to go off well, and I want it to be well received by the folks and have them ask for it to come back.
So how many people? Go ahead, Eric.
Oh no, I was just going to say that sounds awesome. And as I've said before too, a big gaming convention is a unique opportunity, and even for narrative players, because I've talked to a lot of friends who will attend an event and say, oh, I'm just going to go to see some games and just hang out and walk around and meet with old friends and stuff, because they're not really interested in the competition of the GT. But having an alternative event like a narrative is a great way for them to experience the convention as well as a little bit of a chance to play as well.
Yeah, indeed. I agree. No, did you have a question? I thought you were.
Yeah. So given that this is going to be the first time they're going to be running at LVO, how many people are you planning on preparing for so far?
Okay, so I capped the event at 24, and right now I believe we have 23 tickets sold.
It's always great to hear that.
Yeah, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure it stayed manageable, for a first time, because I've helped out with Nova and, run a little bit of Coalescence and all that stuff. But to actually put together a show at a major event like that, I didn't want to bite off more than I could chew. So.
Yeah, narrative events also require always a little bit more concentrated bookkeeping from the part of the games master to keep things flowing and the story connected.
Oh, yeah, in a big way. I mean, actually, watching what Matt Tucker and Aaron went through at Nova, at the same time, I'm really excited and pumped to be doing this, and I'm dreading the fact that it's coming up.
So I just wanted to ask you, so I read the bit that you already have for your pack, and could you elaborate just a little bit on exactly what the set's going to be, the narrative? It's an oasis in Akshi?
Yeah, it's going to be set in Akshi, in a little small corner of Akshi, a desert. All the people involved have basically stumbled on this oasis in the desert, and there's 4 caravans that are set up at this oasis. And because it's a desert, and because, well, go figure, deserts, water is pretty much the big deal here. So they're trying, each one of those trade caravans is vying for more control over the scarcity of water that's available. And so the player armies, the player forces, are really going to be contracted by these caravans to go out and fight for supremacy. And there's going to be a little bit of a twist at the end when they figure out where the water really comes from, but the players will find out about that when they get there.
Good.
I'm guessing it's going to be the saliva of a god beast, but that may be because we've gone down that road so many times.
I was going to say that's a pretty well used trope.
Well, so there's still a couple seats left for your event, Bill. Can you let our listeners know where they could go to find out more details and also buy tickets?
Okay, so sure. If you want to score a ticket, all you need to go is get on your internet box and go to www.lasvegasopen.net. And if you hit the registration link from that front page, you can drill down to where the AOS events are, and then you can see the AOS narrative, and you'll be able to score a ticket. And if it does sell out soon, which, everybody hopes it sells out, I do anyway, but there is going to be a wait list. So, you know, not to worry.
And on the matter of wait lists, we have a lot of players that didn't get into the Nova Open narrative at first, but as we got closer to the event, there were players that decided either they couldn't make the weekend or they wanted to focus on another game system or do some seminars or whatever. So actually, everybody who wanted to get into the Nova narrative got in. So it's
Yeah, and
definitely worth getting on the wait list.
Yeah, I
that's
was
kind
number
of the way.
23 and I got in. So if
Wow.
that means something. Progressively climbed up through the ranks.
There you go. And I imagine we'll have the same thing. Of course, there's going to be drops as you get closer to the event because real life intervenes for a lot of people. But, you know, I expect that we'll get a decent table size. And can I do a quick shout out to somebody?
Hmm.
Okay, I want to send a quick shout out to Chuck Moore. He's the one that hooked me up with the guys from GW to help out with the terrain. And again, just want to shout out Chuck and the GW guys because they're going to help out setting up these tables quite a bit, and that is just so awesome. You can't believe it.
Yeah,
I was
that is
really
amazing.
sweating having to set up 12 tables by myself.
That's a tremendous help.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, table setting, that makes an episode just for managing that, I'd say.
Oh yeah. It's if you don't have, this is the first year, so the thought of having to buy and build 12 tables worth of terrain was one of the things that made me almost want to quit and say, "Nah, I ain't doing this." But luckily Chuck knows a guy who knows a guy, and yeah, thank God we all are in the new GW era because they are so cool it hurts.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Bill, for joining us and telling us a little bit more about your event at LVO. And we wish you all the best, and we want you to back on the show and at a later date and talk to us more about your plans and or conclusions and how it went. And we'll all be looking to see pictures and tweets and live streams possibly
Oh yeah.
as the weekend arrives.
I hope I won't disappoint, and I will, of course, be willing to come on whenever you guys will have me. And the reverse is also true. You guys are always welcome on Rolling Bad.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you
Bill.
very much. Okay, and I think it's all for today, right, Aaron?
Yes, indeed. And you can contact us at wearetheneon.com. There is a contact button there. Go ahead and fill in your email and your comments, then we'll get back to you.
Or you can join the Facebook group and post away, ask all your questions. So all these events that we described today are just about to start, so you can probably follow them on Twitter if you're not there yourself. And we apologize if you've forgotten anyone that we should have mentioned. If so, rage at us in the comments. That's what they're for.
Indeed.
And reach out to us if you have something that you want to publicize and if you want to make your voice heard, and you can be a megaphone. And yeah, we need to publicize narrative gaming.
Indeed. And this weekend, I'm going to be definitely following along on Twitter at realms_at_war.
Awesome. All right. That's a wrap. All right.
Oh.
See you then, folks. Roll high and prosper.